The arena of ash and steel. The air in the Valhalla arena was thick with the roar of alien voices, each one baying for blood. Above the sands, banners of a dozen species fluttered, their colors sharp against the steel-gray sky. The smell of oil, sweat, and death clung to every breath. At the center of the blood-stained arena floor knelt Kael'thira, her vision blurred by exhaustion and pain. Her twin blades, once polished symbols of her clan's honor, lay shattered at her side. Blood, some of it haze, some not, dripped steadily from her furred arms onto the sand. She knew the end had come. Across from her stood Drek Malika, the reigning champion of the Iron Fangs, a towering reptilian behemoth in heavy black armor. His scaled face twisted in a cruel grin as he raised his massive executioner's sword. The crowd, thousands of aliens from the farthest reaches of the Galactic Concord, roared in approval. Kael'thira's heart pounded, not from fear of death, but from the bitter weight of defeat. She had sworn to bring honor back to her disgraced house, to stand proud as a warrior of the Renva, but she had failed. Her bones ached. Her breath came in ragged gasps. The blood loss blurred the edges of her thoughts. She forced herself to lift her chin, even as she sank to her knees. If death was to take her, she would meet it with open eyes. The champion's sword swung high, and then, a sound, soft but sharp, a whistle, slicing through the heavy air. Something blurred past her ears so close she felt the wind of it, heard its ghostly cry. Kael'thira blinked. The champion staggered. The sword fell from Drek Malika's clawed hands with a heavy clang, his reptilian eyes wide with shock. His hand went to his thick throat, where, impossibly, a slender wooden arrow jutted from the gap between his armored plates. For one stunned heartbeat, nothing moved. Then the giant fell, face first into the sand, dead. The arena fell into stunned silence. Kael'thira's breath caught in her throat as she looked up, her mind slow to process what had just happened. Her death denied. The execution stopped. Her heart thundered, confusion warring with disbelief. All around her, alien faces twisted in shock and outrage. Murmurs rose like a gathering storm. No one interfered in Valhalla. No one. And yet, high in the observation stands, one figure calmly lowered a primitive bow. Tall, lean, and fragile by most galactic standards, the stranger was unmistakably human. His skin was pale, his clothing simple, a dark gray cloak over a woven tunic, sturdy leather braces, and the curved wood of an ancient earth weapon slung over his shoulder. No energy rifles, no plasma blades. An arrow, a tool from a forgotten age. Who? Kael'thira rasped, her voice barely more than a whisper. The human's expression was calm, almost serene, as if he'd simply swatted a fly. He made no boast, no declaration. He just acted, and saved her life. The spell broke. Shouts erupted. Guards sprinted toward the arena sands. Officials waved their arms in panic, and the crowd's voices surged into a deafening wall of noise. Some cried outrage. Others roared approval. Kael'thira struggled to rise. Her limbs trembled, her breath shallow. She staggered toward the fallen champion, half expecting him to rise, but he lay still. The arrow, so small, so fragile, had pierced perfectly, severing the life from a creature twice her size. Her eyes lifted again to the stands. The human had not moved. "Get her!" someone barked. The guards were coming for her. Others pointed to the human. Chaos unfurled like wildfire. Kael'thira's mind whirled. Who was this human? Why would he, an outsider, an alien to this galaxy's blood-soaked traditions, intervene? And why? Why did her heart burn not with shame, but with something else, something dangerously close to hope? She clenched her fists, forcing strength back into her broken body. The champion of the Iron Fangs was dead. And for the first time in generations, the rules of the galaxy had been broken by a single arrow, by a human, the archer of old Earth. The guards never reached her. By the time they stormed the blood-soaked sands, a sharp command from the High Adjudicator echoed across the arena, halting the chaos. The fighting ceased. All eyes, alien, mechanical, and otherwise, turned to the viewing balcony where the humans stood, still calm, still silent. Kael'thira staggered but managed to stay on her feet as two medics of her species helped her aside. Her wounds throbbed. Her pride, though battered, still burned in her chest. She could not take her eyes off the one who had saved her. Hours later, in the sterile light of the Concord tribunal chamber, she sat in silence as the formal inquiry began. Around her, representatives of dozens of alien species filled the circular hall, their holographic nameplates glowing above them. And at the center stood the human, the archer. "State your name for the record," the high adjudicator intoned. The human stepped forward. His voice was soft but clear, carrying strange, flat vowels that marked him as Earthborn. Arin Voss, citizen of the Terran Accord, representing the planet Earth. Earth. The name still felt strange on Kael'thira's tongue. Whispers filled the chamber. The Terrans were newcomers to the Galactic Concord, barely accepted, mostly dismissed as weak, primitive, barely worthy of attention. And yet here he stood, the one who had slain the champion of the Iron Fangs with a simple wooden arrow. "You violated Concord law," growled an Iron Fangs representative, a thick-scaled brute with burning yellow eyes. "No outside interference is permitted in ceremonial combat." Arin met the alien's gaze without flinching. "I acted because what I witnessed wasn't combat. It was execution." A ripple of murmurs. "Your species," another delegate sneered, "has no standing to lecture us on honor. You are barely spacefaring." Kael'thira's claws twitched, but Arin remained unmoved. He reached calmly into a satchel at his side and produced another arrow, identical to the one that had saved her life. "This is wood," he said simply, holding it aloft. "A material my ancestors used tens of thousands of years ago for hunting and war. My people are new to your stars, but we are old in other ways. Where I come from, there is a saying, evil triumphs when good people do nothing." He let the words hang in the air. "I saw injustice," he continued softly, "and I stopped it. That is all." The Iron Fangs roared in protest. The adjudicator's gavel slammed down, calling for silence. Kael'thira couldn't hold her tongue any longer. Weakly, she pushed herself to her feet. I would speak." The assembly turned. "This human," she rasped, her voice dry but steady, "acted when others would not. He saved my life, but more than that, he reminded me of something we have all forgotten. Honor is not blind obedience to tradition. It is the courage to do what is right." Her words startled even herself. The tribunal recessed, but the impact was undeniable. The incident could not be buried. Whispers rippled through every political hall. The human, this insignificant species, had defied the old rules and lived. Later, in a quiet corner of the Concord's diplomatic quarters, Kael'thira finally stood face to face with her rescuer. Alone. "You're either brave," she said softly, "or a fool." Arin gave a small, tired smile. "Maybe both." She studied him, his unarmored frame, his quiet presence, his strange eyes that held no fear of her claws, her fangs, or the brutal culture that ruled the stars. "You don't even know me," she said quietly. "Why risk yourself?" He shrugged. "On my world, we have stories. Of archers who stood alone against giants. Of warriors who fought not for glory, but to protect those in need. I acted because I couldn't stand by and watch." Kael'thira lowered her gaze, then whispered, "Your arrow saved my life. And by the laws of my people, I owe you a debt I cannot ignore." Arin raised an eyebrow. "I didn't do it for a reward." "Nevertheless," she murmured, meeting his eyes, "from this moment, I name you claw-brother of the Renvar, by my blood and honor." For a long moment, they stood in silence, two strangers from opposite worlds. Then she extended her clawed hand. Arin took it. Somewhere far away, political powers stirred, old alliances trembled, and the whisper of war began to rise. But in that quiet room, something new was born: blood, honor, and the coming storm. The night air on the capital station of Varkos Prime was thin and cold, the stars distant pinpricks beyond layers of steel and artificial atmosphere. Kael'thira stood at the edge of a balcony, her fur ruffling in the artificial wind, her golden eyes fixed on the blackness beyond. Footsteps behind her, soft, deliberate. "Can't sleep either?" Arin Voss asked, stepping beside her, his breath forming faint clouds in the chill. She shook her head. The scent of blood doesn't leave so easily. It had been 3 days since the tribunal. 3 days since she had bound herself, by ancient law, to the human who had saved her. 3 days since the Iron Fangs, humiliated by the death of their champion, began moving pieces in the shadows. The two of them had been followed, watched. The political tension in the Galactic Concord was rising fast, and now Kael'thira could feel it in her bones. Something was coming. Something deadly. "I've spent my life in the wilds," Arin said quietly, leaning on the rail. "Tracking prey, listening for danger. You can feel when a storm's about to break." Kael'thira glanced sideways at him. His face was calm, but she could see it in his eyes, sharp, alert. More than she'd first thought. Much more. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. "Saving me." He exhaled slowly. "No, I regret that it had to be done at all." A sudden click, metal on metal, snapped her instincts into motion. Without thinking, she lunged forward, pulling Arin down just as a pulse blade hissed through the air where his neck had been a heartbeat before. Assassins. 3 of them, black-armored, reptilian, Iron Fangs. Kael'thira rolled, snarling, her claws flashing. Arin hit the ground, bow already in hand, in one fluid motion. Before the first assassin could strike again, an arrow whistled past Kael'thira's ear, just like in the arena, striking the attacker clean through the eye socket. The alien collapsed, twitching. Kael'thira leapt to her feet, catching the second assassin's blade with her bare claws. Pain lanced through her palms, but she twisted, using the enemy's weight to drive him hard into the railing. Bones crunched. The third moved fast, too fast for her to intercept. But Arin's second arrow found the gap between the assassin's armor plates, driving deep into the base of the neck. The alien gurgled and fell without a sound. Silence. Breathing hard, Kael'thira pressed a hand to her ribs, her pulse thudding in her ears. "They were here to kill you." Arin wiped sweat from his brow, but kept the bow ready. "Us," he corrected softly. "Both of us." Footsteps pounded in the distance. Station guards, too late, as always. Kael'thira stared at the bodies, her claws trembling. "They won't stop," she whispered. "The Iron Fangs, they see your action as an act of war. An insult. You've made enemies they won't forgive." "I've made an ally," Arin said simply, his eyes meeting hers. She blinked. He wasn't boasting. There was no false bravado, just quiet certainty. And it struck her, truly struck her, that for all his softness, this human held a kind of resolve she had rarely seen, even among her fiercest kin. "You fight like no one I've seen," she murmured. "Your weapons are primitive, yet you strike with precision few of us achieve." Arin allowed himself a small smile. On Earth, there's an old saying, "The arrow flies not by strength, but by purpose." Kael'thira's lips twitched, half a smile, half a snarl. "Perhaps your kind isn't as primitive as we thought." Before she could say more, an urgent message crackled through the station's comms. The High Adjudicator demanded their presence at once. Something had happened. Kael'thira's expression darkened. "It's begun." Arin nodded grimly. "Time to face it, then." Together, they walked through the steel corridors of the station, blood still drying on their hands. Whatever came next, assassins, trials, or worse, they would face it side by side. Unseen in the darkness, the first sparks of a larger conflict had already ignited. The arrow that sparked a war. The Grand Concord Hall was a place built for peace, not war. Its towering crystal columns and silver floors were meant to reflect the unity of dozens of species. But as Kael'thira and Arin Voss stepped into its center beneath the gaze of countless alien delegates, the air was thick with tension. The Iron Fangs had called for an emergency tribunal. At the heart of the demand, the execution of Arin Voss and the expulsion of Earth from the Galactic Concord. Kael'thira's wounds still ached from the assassination attempt. She could smell the anger radiating from the Iron Fang's seats, could taste the quiet dread clinging to the Concord's smaller, weaker species. No one wanted this confrontation, but the Iron Fangs would not back down. At Arin's side, Kael'thira felt her claws twitch with restless fury. She had sworn by her people's oldest code. This human was now her claw brother. She would die before she let them take him. The High Adjudicator, a withered insectoid with silken robes, banged the ceremonial staff. Let the accused speak. Arin stepped forward. Alone. Calm. I'm not here to apologize, he said, his voice carrying through the chamber. I'm here to say what no one else will. What happened in the arena was not honorable combat. It was cruelty. I stopped it because I believe there's a difference between strength and murder. The murmurs rose. The Iron Fang's representative, thick-scaled, armored, barely containing his fury, snarled. Your kind is weak. Your primitive morality is meaningless here. Kael'thira stepped forward before the adjudicator could stop her. Then let me speak, she growled. I am Arin Voss, born of war, bred for battle. I have lived by blade and claw. And I say this human has more honor than the Iron Fangs have shown in 100 cycles. The hall fell silent. I name him Claw Brother, she continued, voice steady. And I invoke ancient right, trial by combat. If his life is to be judged, let it be on the field by strength, not politics. The Iron Fangs roared, but they could not deny the law. The trial had to proceed. Within the hour, the arena was set. But this time, Kael'thira would not stand aside. I'll fight for you, she told Arin, strapping on her worn armor. I have the right. You saved my life. Let me return the debt. Arin placed a hand on her arm. I won't let you fight alone. He pulled his old wooden bow from its case. The string hummed as he tested it. We'll do this together. The duel was brutal from the start. The Iron Fang's chosen champion was a colossus of scaled flesh and cybernetic implants, wielding a serrated warblade that could cleave starship armor. Kael'thira met him head-on, her claws flashing, dodging the first brutal swing by a breath. But this was no ordinary warrior. The enemy was faster, stronger, enhanced. Arin circled the perimeter, arrow knocked, breath calm. He waited, watched. Kael'thira struck hard, but the champion battered her aside with bone-jarring force. She hit the ground, gasping, ribs bruised. The Iron Fangs howled for blood. The champion raised his blade high. The wind whispered. Thwip! The first arrow struck, clean through the warrior's knee joint. The giant stumbled. Kael'thira seized the opening, launching upward in a flash of movement, her claws raking across the champion's throat, but it wasn't deep enough. He roared, backhanding her aside. Arin moved again. Calm. Steady. Thwip. Another arrow, this one to the wrist, forcing the giant to drop his sword. Kael'thira rose despite the pain, her breath ragged. The two locked eyes, human and alien, understanding in that moment without words. Together. The next seconds unfolded in a blur. Kael'thira darted low while Arin fired high, each movement in harmony. When she leapt, he fired his final arrow, straight into the champion's open mouth. The creature reeled back, and Kael'thira struck the final blow, driving her claws into his chest with a feral cry. The champion fell, dead. The arena was silent. Then the adjudicator's voice rose. The challenge is decided. The life of the Terran stands protected by ancient law. The Concord remains whole, a fragile, shivering piece. For now. That night, in the quiet of the station, Kael'thira and Arin sat side by side, bloodied but alive. You've changed everything, she whispered. Arin smiled faintly. Maybe, or maybe we've just reminded them of something they forgot. Kael'thira's claws flexed thoughtfully. This won't be the end of it. No. Arin agreed softly, staring out at the distant stars. It's just the beginning.